In Module 6 of Human Origins, we're going to consider when our ancestors left Africa. Up to this point, we've been talking about hominins only in Africa, mostly Eastern and Southern Africa. But there, of course, was a time when hominins left the homeland and were pilgrims moving into particularly Asia. When I was a student, we thought that was only about 500,000 years ago. Now we're finding fossils in Java in particular that go back to as much as 1.6 million years. We've discovered that the first evidence for out of Africa is about 1.8 million years between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea in the country of Georgia, where beautiful skulls are being found. This all goes back, this inquiry into out of Africa, to the late 1800s, when a Dutch anthropologist and anatomist by the name of Dubois went to Sumatra and finally to Java, and in 1891 found the skull cap and an associated thigh bone of what was called Homo erectus, a discovery that was actually predicted by a German biologist by the name of Ernst Haeckel. So we'll meet some pretty interesting characters as we go through this module. And then there were discoveries that began to be made in China proper, particularly in a cave not far from Peking, as it's now called Beijing, a cave known as Chukutian, or Zhukutian as it's now said, a cave that supposedly was the hill of dragon bones, because they found fossilized bones of all kinds of mammals. And they began to find cranial parts and long bones and tools and things of something that was called Peking man. And you'll hear the great tragedy of how all those fossils that were discovered in the early part of the 19th century were lost and have never been recovered. Research still going on, fortunately, and new discoveries being made all the time. Then we'll look at a potential ancestor for Neanderthals, which we'll be talking about shortly, and perhaps also for modern Homo sapiens. This was a discovery. It was a lower jaw found in the early part of the 1900s and called Homo heidelbergensis. Why? Because it was found near Heidelberg, Germany, of course. And now we have good skulls, or these are really crania, but skulls with big, massive brow ridges, fairly projecting face, large teeth, and so on. This one happens to be from Africa, and it's called Kabwe, from what was formerly called Rhodesia. And these specimens are put into this category, Homo heidelbergensis, which has been very poorly understood until, as you will learn, incredibly exciting discoveries in northern Spain from the Atapuerca Hills. And this now brings us to a point where we can begin to connect more of the dots and know something about the origins of Neanderthals and the origins of our own species, Homo sapiens.